All right, everybody, welcome in for our regular Tuesday equity and option roundtable. We have a little bit to talk about today. So, I think really kind of the first thing that we should probably talk about is Riley. I mean, I think that's what's probably on most people's minds right now that are here in the chat. So, do you want to go ahead and start that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. A little bit difficult today, huh? I'm still looking through numbers as we talk.
There's a lot, man. It's a lot to digest. Like
Uh,
their business is so complex.
it is, and that earnings call is, you see some people saying that they weren't very clear, and it's like, well, they can only be clear about so many things. Uh, we had I thought they actually did a lot. They gave us a couple surprises. We were hoping for surprises. That SpaceX exposure.
That's
That's
a big
pretty
one.
well.
That's a big one, especially pre-IPO, because what you guys have to understand is that when you own something pre-IPO, right? That IPO is basically your big cash out event. And if you don't think that SpaceX is going to generate a ton of hype, I think that you are fucking wrong. I think that
Yeah,
that is going to be a wild roller coaster ride,
yeah,
especially because they're talking about IPOing at like 1.75 trillion or something stupid like that. I mean, just an insane valuation right off the bat. So it doesn't need to stay there. It just needs to be there and trade there for a little bit or
yeah.
even move up.
I mean, how many countries does that put it at a higher value? No, most.
Yeah, literally a bunch of them.
Yeah.
It's saying that SpaceX is worth more than entire fucking countries.
Okay, so I mean, we saw that. They talked about gag and how they were valuing gag. Um, Gag is the Great America Group. I thought that was pretty good. They were basically saying how much we can liquidate it for. Uh, um, and which one do I need to mute myself on?
You shouldn't have to mute yourself anywhere.
They're saying that they have echo
Yeah,
again.
yeah, there's an echo. So yeah, mute my stream, guys. All of the viewers, please mute my stream. We have to do it this way because this is how we can record it. Actually, can I just do this? Can I mute my fucking stream? No, I cannot. So you guys are gonna have to mute my stream. All right,
Okay.
go on.
So, all right. So, Great America Group, how much they can get off liquidation. So, we didn't know how they were valuing that, but at least that is some window in. They said they aren't going to IPO or SPAC BRS, which is disappointing. But they also said that, the way that they're doing it is giving us some insight. So, we are able to, come up with some values. And that's kind of been a big thing, right? Is like, we don't know, how to value these things. So, getting them breaking down the telecom business into four parts was nice. That's also changing how this 10K reads. So, does when the traders come in tomorrow, they're looking at this thing. Do the institutions start to give us some buy side pressure?
It's a fantastic question. I think that with the 10K completely audited and released, along with the 8K, that there's a really good shot at it, um, and to that is simply due to the fact that institutions, as a very bare minimum, right? They want the listing requirements of the exchange that an asset is trading on to be met, right? That is the most basic amount of risk management and due diligence that they can possibly do. So, with that being said, right, that this is no longer an issue. Um, and that's really positive to me. That's really positive to me. We also did see, even if we kind of pulled back a little bit, we had really low volume after hours, but we did see a little bit of a pop up towards 850. And if you look, a lot of times after these pops, these initial kind of pops and drawdowns, like we could look at this one from January, right, where we popped up to about 7, drew down to we popped up, I guess, actually more like 760, drew down to 690. And then what happened after that? We had our wild run, right? So this could be a situation that is very similar, and we're just gonna have to see how the market digests it tomorrow. I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, we also did get a little bit of insight. So these numbers were for the period ending December 31st, right? So ending in 2025, not including anything that's been done over the last 3 full months. And we have seen a pretty big reduction in debt. And we know that a lot more debt reduction is going to be reported on this upcoming quarter, because we watched one of the basically one of the bonds, right, get completely delisted.
Yeah, couple.
And yeah,
They
and
said today that they've also been working on the P and the K. So, well, the
yep.
K's already. So we do know that all of these are happening. Scott at one point during the call said, so far this quarter they've seen another $100 million in debt pay down.
Mhm.
So, that. So we know there's another 100 million. It was at 600. That takes it to 500. We know that their BW assets have gained 225, 230 million. So now we're down. We're at 250 million net debt as of today.
Yeah. And not only that, but there's a really interesting thing that when I was looking through the 10K, that I don't know if many people caught, but it was the fact that the loan from Nomura is completely paid off. Now, that one had a very specific covenant in it, where essentially Nomura was going to be the first in line if, for whatever reason things go south, or, if they're at the capacity to pay any kind of dividends, right? Nomura had the first rights, so to speak, to that. And that has been eliminated completely. So that is no longer an issue, and that is actually a really big deal. That's a really big deal.
I another thing with that Nomura thing, which I don't know how this is going to play out long term. They have claimed that they were gated between East and West, but their loan was with Nomura West. Nomura West held all of those covenants. Nomura East was shorting it.
Absolutely.
So that's gonna probably play out in court over the next couple years. I mean, it's kind of not, that's just more drama than anything, but it is kind of a fun little fact that was happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of drama with this ticker. I like it for that.
There really is. I mean, it's not quite like the drama that, was happening surrounding it with Mark Cahotis and his son. Like that was some crazy drama. But there's always something happening with this, and I really do enjoy that. So
Yeah.
I I am I a little disappointed that this gave back some of those gains after hours? Yeah, I mean, obviously, of
I
course.
I'm fully expecting to see the IV Crush take about 40 grand out of my account in the morning. So
Yep.
I'm um I'm kind of, well,
Yeah,
who
well,
needs who needs to sleep?
what's what's yeah, exactly. What's 40 between friends, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think that, overall that this is still in really good shape. I do think that maybe some of the shorter term options, we're going to see. We're going to see how this opens up tomorrow. We're going to see how traders begin pricing it in.
Yeah.
So,
I think this week's probably cooked, but I do think we can probably see some good moves next week, to be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with Riley? Because I definitely want to talk about NASDAQ for a minute.
Yep. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So with NASDAQ today, we saw quite a big rally.
You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about that?
While we were talking about it on stream this morning, we were expecting, potentially a little bit more green. To be honest with you, I thought that it was going to stop like right here, right around like 23,550. And it ended up rocketing up and almost touching this massive liquidity level. And we could see just how big of a deal this area has been historically, right? Because anytime that we get near it from the top side, it would just bounce. Well, that same area is now likely to act as resistance. So we're going to see what happens. There was a little bit of news that hit last night where basically Donald Trump was saying that he was considering, and this is the word, considering, just straight up ending the war, pulling out from the Middle East, and handing full control of the Strait of Hormuz to Iran. But simultaneously, while he was saying that, he was green lighting troops going into the Middle East and green lighting operations. And then today we're right back to being war hawks. So just like it has been since the start of this conflict, we have no fucking idea what is actually happening. So don't think that this is a recovery and suddenly, oh, bear market's over. We're not going to the moon. It's very unlikely.
So looking at, like, how are you playing this? Are you playing like straddles with long-term calls and then short-term puts, or?
So realistically, what I'm doing is I'm waiting for weakness and I'm waiting for like little rejections off of these levels, right? And then when I see that and I see that continued weakness and I see heavy bearish delta, so most of the things being conducted on the bid rather than the ask, right? And just kind of seeing in general being walked down. Um, obviously I'm shorting futures in the morning, and then we are taking basically like at the money puts that are 0 or 1 day to expiry and just scalping them until we see support emerge.
I mean, I feel like that's going to play long term at this point. There's nothing that's going to stop that from being profitable right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, obviously today there were some opportunities here, right? Because this thing did end up like tracing down in the middle of the day and then just pumping way up. So I'm kind of just on watch to see what happens next. I think that we're going to be running into some pretty heavy resistance here, and if we just look at the volume profile for like the last 2 months, right? Like we could see we're still in a very illiquid area where not much is really being transacted down here. Despite this big green candle, it wasn't really on much. You know what I mean? So I'm 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 just a little skeptical of this pump, right? We can see that the volume, even in this area, right? Even if I shorten it down, right? And we would say that this is pretty much half and half, right? Like about half the price action up here, half down here. You could see that it's not even remotely close, right? Everyone was still buying the top up here.
And so, do you think right now where we're at is actually weaknesses, or do you think that we're kind of at that perfection pricing where we're just going to kind of trade in this channel and just bounce up and down?
That's a really interesting question, because if we are going to be trading in this channel, then what I would expect, like based on of course like the gamma exposure, based on just kind of like the general trend that we have going on, I would expect it to be kind of like in this range, right? Oh, well, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to paint Bob Ross, right? I would expect us to trade in this range, if anything. But realistically, I think that it's honestly very possible that over the next day or two that we kind of come up and we fuck around up here for a little bit, and then we drop, right? Bounce, drop, and we kind of continue this downward trend.
Yeah.
Because if you look, that's something that not only has happened in the very recent past, but it's something that happens in markets all the time, right? Some of the biggest green days that the indices ever had came in the middle of the dot-com bubble crashing. They came in the middle of 2008, right, during that crash. And you have to realize that, of course, we need to put these into context, because a 16% green day on an indice is rare. Okay, like if you see something like 15-16%, that's rare. But you have to also account for the 3 days before it where it was 10% red each day,
Yeah.
right? And then you realize that you're not actually gaining ground. Like, yes, this did pump up, it did, absolutely, but we're still below this break from last week on Thursday.
Yeah. So I mean, I always play the market is all a game. Somebody has come up with a little pattern they're comfortable with. We're going to kind of bounce all the way down. I had 610 as a target for SPY. And so we're going to keep getting these Taco Tuesday, Taco Wednesdays for the next couple weeks. And then they're going to realize that people have figured out the rules, and it's going to be time for new rules. And then I think we're back up. I mean,
Yeah.
I
We'll
believe
see
it's
what
all
happens.
a conspiracy.
I think that what it is that we're seeing just like a lot of general negativity in the sentiment between consumers, right? Um, we're seeing just kind of a lack of buyers really stepping in. Um, we we are seeing GDP numbers come out bad and then get revised to be even worse. Today, we had our Jolt job openings report, and that actually did not come out as bad as I thought it was going to. Um, so I think that that might have helped propel us a little bit today, to be honest with you. But I just I don't know. All of the indices are really, really tech heavy, and we're running into these issues in tech and with the sentiment around tech because of this massive AI capex. Right, this is the same thing that we've been talking about for the last few months, um, where these businesses are investing a ton and they're not really seeing any kind of return yet. And I think until they start to see that return, and until things get better globally, that these uptrends are just not going to have a lot of strength.
Yeah. So, we were talking, we did our live video about private credit. Private credit's not moving with these moves. It's not going down heavily on these down days, and it's not going up very much on these up days. Um, so maybe, just a little addendum to what we were talking about, what if we can kind of draw that path, that parallel, and kind of figure out the the sentiment that the same traders are having now as the rest of the market kind of catches up to that early sell-off in that sector.
Absolutely, absolutely. And not only that, but I think that one thing that we do have to also acknowledge is that while the indices were basically flat and just trading in a big range, right? While all of this was happening, those were eating shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, they have already detached from the indices. And I while I'm definitely not bullish on them, and I definitely wouldn't want to long them, I also wouldn't want to short them either. Kind of like what we were saying in our video, right? Is that we just want to watch them. And if we see a big sudden surge of interest in them, then that might be a little bit of a signal that sentiment on Wall Street is turning around regarding tech in general.
Exactly.
So just keep an eye out for that. One more thing to touch on with Nasdaq. You might notice this big red fucking box that I labeled death. Basically, what I think would happen is if we get here and we end up breaking down into this box, I think that is where you're going to see massive, massive moves, and it's going to be swinging violently, super volatile. And if we end up breaking out of the bottom of this thing, we are going to go into a full-on meltdown. And I'm not trying to sit here and be a gay bear, okay? But I am trying to let you know that this is that liquidation event that we were talking about last week, right? We are seeing it begin. Look, this was the candle last week when we were talking about it on Tuesday, right? And look what has happened since. So I think that we are still kind of just at the cusp. And I think that we got a little bit of a taste of it over the last few days. And yes, I am more bearish than you are.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you're I think this was probably just healthy correction, man. I think we're gonna drop back down. We're gonna dip our toes in your little death zone, and then we're going back up.
And that's entirely possible too, right? Because I think that when you're looking at this quote unquote death zone, right? I think what you need to realize is that this is the point where if things get worse, that you are going to see deleveraging and you are going to see institutions selling out of big long positions, and that'll put us into a spiral. So I would imagine that if there is a point that bulls want to defend it, it's before we get down here, right? And that's solely based on liquidity. That's all I'm looking at with this. So yeah, that's kind of the broader markets in a nutshell right now, right? Iran war is fucking everything up. Lots of AI spending, unhappy investors.
Yeah. So as far as what I'm doing, last night right before close, I bought a bunch of lottos. I did pretty well on those. And now I'm gonna buy some Monday dated puts because we're just gonna keep going down. I really do think we're just in rhythm right now. I think this is I mean,
It's gonna be the new normal for a while.
It's just so obvious,
Yeah, I think there's a good shot that, like you were saying, that we've found our new range right here.
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, it's a pretty big range, but it's a range nonetheless. So
yeah,
we'll see
I know.
what happens.
I mean, and that range for on on SPY, which is what is the easiest for a lot of people. Even though I'm talking to the NASDAQ server, the other people, the rest
it's
of the
the
people,
same shit, to be honest. But yeah,
yeah. So like for like, what does Trump do when he realizes SPY has, or Dow Jones hasn't moved more than 5% in his 2 years? Like, there's got to be something, right? He's not going to allow that. This is his kryptonite.
yeah. Well, we'll kind of see, because it's almost like he does everything he can to actually harm the fucking markets. So that's a really good question. Like, I don't know. I mean, he did start a whole ass war and place a bunch of tariffs, and none of that is good for us.
Yeah.
Good for markets in general. So
For those who
we'll see.
missed it, I was talking about how I own a grocery distribution business, and tomorrow we have to raise our prices on all of our groceries up 10% across the board. So, that translates to the market within about 3 weeks. This is always like the little front loader.
Yep, and things are very, very likely to just keep getting more expensive.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that this inflation is going to be slowing at all, especially with the conflict in the Middle East drawing out. And even if it were to end today, there is a ton of damage that has been done to all of the critical energy, basically energy resources there, right? And all of the energy infrastructure to mine, or rather to frack for natural gas, and to drill for oil, refine it, distribute it, right? Like, all of that has been just blown the fuck up. So there's going to be issues even if we stop today. But these issues don't translate into price increases immediately. They take a little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, when you start seeing your gallon of milk at $8 a gallon, That's the next one for us. We are looking at $8 a gallon milk.
Yeah, that's going to be brutal. That is going to be brutal. Well, let's talk about some other stuff. What else do you have on your radar?
Okay, so the one that didn't move that much, just as like a I like to buy. I'm still long on Iovance, and definitely got a mispricing today on a lot of their calls. Price went up with everything else, and all of the calls actually went down a little bit. So if you're into leaps and stuff and you are wanting to risk a little bit on bio, I think the end of the year $5 and $4 leaps are pretty good deal right now.
Yeah,
That's there's nothing to discuss on
it's
that. That's just one
speculative.
of those
Yeah,
things I'd note.
yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I would like to talk about that's really kind of in line with our private credit video that we made is VCX. So in case you have not been paying attention, or you just haven't stumbled across it, VCX is essentially just a big private credit. Um, they're a big private credit firm, and they have massive holdings in OpenAI, Anthropic, Epic Games, things like that. Realistically, even if you attached like a 50% premium to this company's holdings, you're looking at like $30 a share. Okay. So this thing is a big pile of fucking garbage. Okay. And it's coming at a really interesting time, right? Where private credit is kind of coming under a lot of flack. And then you suddenly have these guys who decide to IPO into all of that when there's all of these concerns. And what does it do? It starts early in the morning at 31 bucks. It trades as high as 578, dips down to 96, and now it's sitting at 130. This is a big old scam thing. And you know what I think this is going to end up looking like? I think it's going to look like this chart.
Did you pull up DXYZ? Oh no. Okay. that was what I thought it was going to be.
I think it's going to look like that. I think it's going to look just like Newsmax. And for those of you that don't remember, right, last year during April, Newsmax IPO'd actually, I guess it was the 31st of March, but it peaked up in April, right, on April 1st, and it ran all the way from an initial sell price of 1370. The very high was 270. I think it hit like 400 after hours one day, and then it just kind of sold off, and it's been slowly bleeding because this is a dog shit business. And I think that VCX is going to have a fate like this. I think that you are looking into VCX's future. And not that the businesses are similar, but I think that the charts will look similar if we just zoom 6 months into the future. So, that kind of ties in with what we were saying. And, as far as this private credit fund IPOing, these guys needed exit liquidity. And by these guys, I mean their investors, right? Their investors wanted exit liquidity. They wanted to, the company wanted to raise funds. So you IPO, now you have a market for your shares. Okay. Now you can sell your ownership in the company and you can get out. And, retail here's OpenAI and Anthropic, and a lot of people, man, they just go fucking nuts. They act like it's the best goddamn thing in the world. But what you don't see is that these companies are doing nothing but burning money. Okay. OpenAI was burning so much money on Sora 2 that within, 6 months of releasing it, they're shutting it down. Within 6 months of a product release that they spent tons of money on, they're shutting it down because it's costing too much to run. So they spent money to develop a product that makes them spend money. That doesn't sound like a great business model to me.
I'm still catching up on all these charts that when you did this. The other one that did this not too long ago is actually probably the better one to look at is ORBS.
Oh God, dude, this thing.
That's this one that I shorted the shit out of.
This thing is such a pile of shit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah, this thing's
and
garbage.
their holdings are 30% OpenAI.
Yep.
Looking at their NAV right now. So this was one that, like they tried to also launch a world coin and say, hey, it just keeps going the wrong way.
They literally, so what it's funny because what 8co does, right? That's Orbs. 8co is the company name. What 8co does is basically whatever's trendy, they try to generate a bunch of hype, and then they just, you know, have someone run it up for them, and they dilute the fuck out of you, and it's a big pile of garbage. So this is like one of the scammiest funds. And you could even see, right, that these guys did nothing but lose money in the third quarter.
Yeah, and
And annually, you can see they've never actually made money.
and it's a scam.
It's a scam.
It-
They Oh wait, I'm sorry. I stand corrected. They made $28,000 in 2021.
I
My
think that's
apologies,
actually more
guys.
than Microvision did, isn't it?
It is more than Microvision did. You're not wrong.
Okay.
So yeah, this is another one of those you know, just big scams.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good comparison to VCX.
We're looking at sorry, I'm looking at all of these different uh charts that we had picked up during the week, and I got so distracted with Riley. So PYPD, for those of you who don't know, PYPD is my baby. It's my number one long right now. Today they did their first
The
their
NDA
first two,
submission, right?
yeah, the NDA, the first two modules of that.
Mhm.
We are probably going to start pumping this, I think. It's just so far below. You're doing 40 to 80,000 volume. There's 98% chance it gets approved. They're going to have a partnership announcement soon. This thing should be trading at $15.
Yeah.
So, just a little heads up for those of you who have heard us talk about lasagna and whatnot. I mean, this is about as close as it's going to get to it. Like it's going to go real soon.
I think there's a good shot of it. I think that it's interesting when we see that two notable things, right? So number one is that we did see sell pressure and a big sell wall kind of pop up over these last few days. But the market was crashing, and this for the most part stayed trading in a really tight range. I mean, this is a 20-cent range.
Yeah.
Right? So this had a very muted response compared to the rest of the market, right? If you're just looking at it from a chartist perspective.
And those wicks are just because there's no volume.
There's nothing. There's no volume. It's very illiquid. Like this thing's so touchy that if you buy a little bit, it just fucking starts running.
I've accidentally ran it like, $1 off of one purchase before.
Yep.
So
Yep. That's always been my experience with PYPD is, I'll put in something, and a few ask walls above me will disappear, and it's like, all right, well, you filled half of my order and now you want another 45 cents for the rest. Like, nah, fuck that, and then I have to just wait. Like it takes forever. So
yeah. What else we got?
I think another good one to kind of talk about is Chevron, to be honest,
Yeah.
because we've talked about Chevron quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right. As a lot of I'm a big Chevron bull. And we got a little bit of a drop off over the course of the last 2 days, but it's still holding up really, really well. And again, I don't think that we are going to have this war end anytime soon. I don't think that we are going to have any kind of reprieve from these high oil prices. So take that for what you will. These guys are able to source a lot of their oil from non-Middle East and and they don't have as big of a reliance on the Strait of Hormuz as a lot of the other major players in oil. So, I'm very, very positive about these guys. And if you've been following along, since I put that call out in January, like you've done great. And I think that at this point, it is a steady hold, and I'm just locked in for a long time here.
It's like one of those things where it's like you feel like you're reiterating yourself. For people who haven't, fully comprehended what all has also happened. Australia has lost half of their production. You have the biggest refining plant in Russia just got knocked offline by Ukrainian drones.
Yep.
This is not just a Strait of Hormuz thing. This is a bunch of things are happening all at once. Um, and if you want to talk about Chevron CEO is like, market hasn't even priced it in yet. He thinks
Yeah.
that this isn't it. It's going higher.
He's
You got
thinking that it's going to 200 a barrel, like
yeah,
basically is what he said in so many words.
yeah.
So, and I think that Chevron is really uniquely positioned in where they've already set up existing infrastructure to be able to capitalize on this insane price, right, of oil that we've been seeing.
Yeah, and I mean, part of it is like, how did you not see this coming? Like when you go and you fuck up the entire global economy, you know, our oil, we have high sulfur oil that we ship down because we built refining plants down in Mississippi. So where does that high sulfur oil come from? That comes from Canada, the fracking fields. Okay, well, where does our oil come from that we're refining off of Texas? Well, that all comes from Venezuela, and like that, like our domestic stuff is not what we refine here in the States. So we have this entire, worldwide infrastructure in place to refine. Everybody refines somebody else's oil. Hardly anybody does their own oil, which is bananas bullshit. I've never understood it, but that's just how it works. This is going to be, I mean, we're halfway through this. It's whatever these prices are right now, we're going to double this.
Yeah, it seems likely. Um, Something that kind of ties in with a little bit of the private credit stuff we're talking about, at least in theme, right? As far as gating any kind of withdrawals and capping any kind of withdrawals, citing liquidity issues. I think
Real
this is
estate.
probably a good time to talk about real estate
Yeah.
and talk about what happened with UBS.
Hmm.
So UBS has a bunch of different real estate funds, and they had to restrict withdrawals from one of their largest and basically cap the withdrawals on a few others. The largest one that they completely said you will not be able to withdraw for up to 3 years is a European real estate fund. And the last time that we saw this happen, specifically with UBS too, they were one of the first, was 2007. So it was as we were moving into the great financial crisis, right? And into that recession. Um, it's kind of eerily similar. I mean, we don't really have that same housing bubble, but one could argue that we have bubbles in a lot of other places.
Well, and this gets into the, where we use these things as barometers, and it's like you're looking, look at this, and then we just need to know those outside factors, and being able to recognize them is how, like, we don't know how to play this right now, right? I'm not going to short this.
No,
Um,
but we want to watch it
yeah,
because
because
because this could be potentially an early sign for more widespread liquidity issues in the financial sector.
and it's the really strong barometer towards what people are actually doing and how the unemployment and employment rates are, and or survivability is out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in other news, we did see a big rush on silver and gold today, right? They surged with the overall market. We saw oil kind of have a little bit of a muted day, and actually ended up dropping. It didn't drop like super hard, right? Like it opened up at 105, traded up to 107, basically down to 99.70, and we ended up at 101.43. So I want to just again remind you that this is still very elevated. Okay, this is still extremely elevated. The last time that we saw the oil prices as high as they are now was in 2022 when COVID destroyed all of the supply chains. Right? People weren't using oil at first, and then when everything came to come back online, right, it surged because there was just no infrastructure for it. Right? People had been away. Um, there were a bunch of delays in production, right? They had to establish a new workforce and train them, so there were a lot of steps to that, and that really helped kick off like a big inflation super cycle. And I think that it's kind of doing the same thing right now, just different, right? This time it's war.
I have a. You want to pull up PERF?
Yeah, perf.
So this is a little play for you guys if you want to make a 15% probably. Perf is an AI company. They have, like, you take a picture of yourself and then you get to try on different makeups. I've never used it, I swear.
Oh, okay.
So this company is trading pretty close to cash value right now, and they have a go private offer. Go private offer is at $1.95 and will be voted on this month, like this coming month. If it does go through, that goes to 195. That's your 15%. There's a bunch of activists now kind of trying to fight this because they say that this is kind of shorting the retail investors that are in it right now because that price is below what the company is worth. So one of three things happen. One, the vote doesn't go through. The people that are pushing through the vote have 85% of the stock, I think. So I don't think that's an
It's
option.
gonna go through. Yeah.
It's going to go through. So if you want to sit on $1.65 right now, and it goes through, it jumps up to 195. Typically, you get a little bit of a discount because it won't go all the way to the go private price. It'll go to like 192, but it's an easy 15%.
Yeah. Yeah. That is easy. That is easy. Speaking of small shitty AI companies, one of the ones that we have been calling out in this Discord has been BZAI, and we were talking about it like down here, right? Is where we started talking about. Actually, we started about right here, and we exited calls right right in here, like on this candle, and then we ended up loading them back up down here and right here. Now, this company literally reported that they had 20x'd their revenue, which, mind you, means going from 1.5 to 38.63, or actually, yeah, right. So it was a big jump. Okay, it was a big jump. These guys are still burning money. They have revenue, which shows that there is at least a little bit of demand. But I do want to caution you guys, obviously, if you're going to trade this, like, I would basically be long volatility and make sure that I have a hedge, right? So I've been straddling this with 50-cent calls and $1 puts. At this point, if I were to jump in, I would be looking at $2 puts and probably $1.50 calls. But I don't see any reason why this volatility is going to die down. If for whatever reason this thing ended up moving up towards like 250 and got a little bit of momentum from there, you're probably looking at a squeeze that takes it right back up towards 6 or 7, just off of market mechanics alone. Realistically, I think that it can probably come up to like 230 or so, pretty easily. And then, we're going to have to see if sentiment around AI and tech and the markets in general kind of shifts there. because this is a risky asset. So when the market is in like risk off behavior and they're selling off of the riskier assets, something like this, right? This little $223 million market cap AI firm that has 38 million in revenue. Like, dude, this is on top of that fucking list. Okay. So just be aware of that. But we have been seeing some success and seeing a little bit of hype building up around this. So, you know, keep that in mind.
I got one of those that's in my my zones right now. MRLN.
Oh, Merlin, yeah.
So you're gonna need to go at least to the 1 year chart.
The 1 year chart for Merlin?
Yeah.
There's no
Just
1 year.
Well, do year to date.
Okay, that's done. The daily, dude, it only goes back to March 11th. I mean, you know.
Okay. Okay.
Anyways, go on.
So basically this thing was kind of not on anybody's radar till March 9th. Then it dropped immediately. People realized what it was, and then it shot up. So it dropped all the way down to what is that right there on that chart? 768.
So it's at 735 right now. The low, actually, we had a double low at 656, right? Around
Okay.
650 area.
And it jumped all the way up to 1350. All right. So what this company is an actual autonomous play. They have a real contract. They've done thousands and thousands of flights. So sorry, it's an
Autonomous
autopilot.
pilot. Yeah.
So they're taking the old C-130Js and then making them, technically they're making them semi-autonomous at first, getting rid of, taking the crew requirements down, especially on dangerous missions and stuff is the idea. If you get a few less people on there, they are talking, I mean, their numbers are insane what they're projecting, as in like they're lying. But they do have a legitimate Air Force contract. They have done test flights out of Alaska with the C-130s, and they've done thousands of flights out of Moab. They've got a test facility there. I don't know what I think about this, but I kind of think it's really cool.
I think it's a cool idea. The thing that kind of, to be honest, like, because you and I talked about this a little bit ago. The thing that almost gives me a little bit of pause is seeing that market cap of 248 million
with
and
a shit ton of warrants.
well, with a shit ton of warrants and also with only 3 employees.
Yeah.
So this is like as speculative as speculative gets. I don't think that options are enabled on this, right?
No.
And they
Not
probably won't be. Like
No.
we'll see. We'll see what happens. If there's enough demand for an options market, then they will. But as of right now, like it's been relatively low volume. So
And
this
I do
hasn't
think
been
it's like a
trading
really,
crazy.
like I said, this is just a really cool idea. I kind of am gonna keep an eye on it. It's like ONDS.
Yeah.
ONDS. I know you're pretty bullish on it. I don't see how it gets to the numbers that people are wanting it to get to, unless there's an entire infrastructure thing they put in place that I haven't been made aware of.
Well, so they do have like the big drone infrastructure, but I think that what people kind of fail to recognize about ONDS is that you're talking about changing how war is conducted. And this is something that generally doesn't happen overnight, right? So I think that that ONDS is going to be slower than most people imagine, right? Like long gone are the days where it's going to be running 15% every single day, like it was last summer, right? When a lot of us ended up getting in. It's going to be a slow burn, guys. Like it's an investment now. So I am bullish on them, but the trade is done as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And what's left is the investment.
So what is their market cap at right now?
It's like 4 billion, I think. Let me see. Yeah, four point almost 420. Almost 420.
Jesus, that's a lot of shares.
It's a lot of shares, but what you have to realize is that they have an entire like investment arm, right?
Yeah.
And it's Ondas Capital that's a subsidiary of Ondas, right? Because this is a holding company. So they have basically a big investment arm that is just buying up controlling interest in all sorts of different drone and drone infrastructure companies around the world, right? Europe, Israel, and North America. And they also have an interesting little segment that a lot of people forget about, which is their train hardware, right, for trains, locomotives. And while that is not the biggest focus, and I don't think that it's going to be the big catalyst going into the future, it does help fund some of their activities because it does have a free cash flow. So I think Ondas really does have some it does have some merit to it. I just think that again, if you are going to try to hop into Ondas and say, all right, well, I'm going to swing it, it's going to go 30% in a week. I think that you're kind of mistaken, and I think that you would you would be better off just buying a small amount and holding it and just waiting, right? It's a speculative play. If it pays off, it's going to pay off huge, but it's an investment now.
Okay. I've actually got to call it. I need to move my boat or else my neighbor
Well,
can't get out.
you have to call it. I'm gonna go just a little bit longer. But
Okay.
yeah, absolutely, brother. Absolutely. And I appreciate you coming out and chatting with us, especially, regarding our beloved Riley.
Yeah, and we need to get Trade Mama on here to do your next call because she has two tickers that she should be talking about, and I haven't wanted to talk about them because they're hers. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So we could do that next week. So Trade Mama, if you just want to connect with me after this, let's chat a little bit. So there is one other ticker that I have been looking at. Um, there's one more ticker. Actually, I think we're going to go through two more. So there's one more ticker that I've been looking at, which is LSE. So this is a Chinese company. I'm going to preface everything that I'm saying with that. This is a Chinese company. Now, what they do is they are fabricators and original equipment manufacturers for equipment for the distribution and refinement and drilling of oil. They are one of the biggest providers of that equipment to China. So with all of the talk about oil and all of the oil problems, I think that this is a really interesting kind of speculative play. And I think that obviously like right now it's really really low volume, like insanely low volume, like 570 shares traded today. Like, and I mean fucking insanely low volume. Okay. It's very illiquid. It is very, very illiquid. But I think that we're seeing kind of a really solid base here, especially coming off the back of this big run up. And I think that this kind of has all of the right things where if people catch wind of this, right? Almost like Anna, how Anna was. If people catch wind of this and they realize that this company exists, I think that there is a good shot that this thing can move. This thing can really move. So again, this is super speculative. Just want to preface by saying that, right? Don't go all in on this. Not what I'm saying, but I'm saying that it's an interesting play if you want some like kind of discount to foreign oil and oil adjacent things, right? It's kind of like rig, right? Where rig actually goes and drills the oil. These guys provide the equipment to do so, but rig is one of the biggest Swiss manufacturers, or rather providers of oil and distributors, and they have been on a steady uptrend since we first called the entry back in January, right? Same time as Chevron, same time frame. Um, these guys have been doing great. These guys have been doing great. So, if this is another kind of oil, adjacent play right here, These guys actually have like a shit ton of contracts for drilling. And right now, they reported a loss on Q4, but or it wasn't a loss, rather it was just a miss. But because, or rather, the thing that caused that miss is that they are acquiring the rights to drill in a bunch of other places, as well as an entire other company that has all of this equipment and has existing contracts. So they're spending a lot of money on expansion. And regardless of all of that, you're seeing the market react in a very favorable way because it's oil, right? It's oil related. So this is one to keep an eye on. Now, Hehe asked me about airline related stuff. So yes, airlines have a very, very high barrier to entry. You got to think about how much it costs to not only hire pilots, to not only hire engineers, to not only get contracts with with airports, but how much does it cost to actually purchase a fleet? Again, we're not talking about fueling it, we're not talking about maintaining it. How much does it cost to go and buy, some planes, some consumer planes, like rather commercial, right? Commercial aircraft. So so that is really expensive. It costs a shit ton to insure them, right? Nothing about it is cheap. So yes, hey, you are correct. It's a very hard thing to break into, but that's kind of where ONDS is special in a way, right? Because they're not focusing on that. They're focusing on drones. And when you're talking about like MRLN, right? MRLN, they are focused on the basically the autonomy of these drones, right? So, or not of these drones, of aircraft. So they are not trying to start their own airline. They're trying to sell this software to existing airlines once it gets approval to do so. Okay. Um, Now, the last thing that I guess we'll talk about is Micron. So Micron is in a really interesting spot now. For those of you that are here in our Warrior program, this is a short that we called out. I could actually just go pull up a little picture of that to show you guys. But this is a short that we did call out. Now, I do want to preface everything that I'm going to say, that I really do like this business, and I really do think that it's a strong business. However, with everything that's been happening lately, it is it it is a bit speculative, and one could argue that it's maybe a little bit overvalued at the current price. And that is just because of the number one, the negative sentiment that's kind of been flowing around. Number two, we are seeing a reprieve around we're seeing a little bit of a reprieve around like the RAM shortage. And I think that I just posted that picture in chat for you guys, by the way. Um, but I think that there is a long-term future here. I just think that this is also very high beta, right? And that's evidenced by how it's been moving with the market, right? It's red on the red days, it's green on the green day. And there it was a really good opportunity. A lot of money was made shorting this fucking thing from 355, all the way down to 320, with actually a low today of 311. So you had the opportunity, if you were shorting common shares, to walk away with a little bit more than 10%. And if you were playing like weekly puts, right, or even puts that are maybe a month out, then you had the opportunity to actually clean up quite a bit and probably make a few 100%. So, um, you know, don't sleep on these trades, right? We're putting them out there. From here, right? I am basically expecting us to continue to move, highly correlated with the market for Micron. And I I guess we'll kind of see what happens tomorrow, right? It's really just the same kind of feeling that we were having in regards to, when we were talking about NASDAQ, that there could be a there could be, a little bit of a gain from here, and we could come back up towards this 355. But I'm fully expecting us, to be honest with you, to kind of shake around a little bit and potentially drop, right? I know that Blanche is, he has a little bit of a different opinion on that, where he thinks, that this is a healthy pullback. Well, I think that this is potentially the beginning of something bigger. Like right now, yes, it's healthy pullback. That's the territory that the markets are in. But if we go a little bit further, right? If we have just a little bit more red, then you already saw what can happen when that dam breaks. You already saw like how quick all of this can actually move. Because again, this is something that we talked about last week. This crash that we saw, this was called way in advance. This is a $1,200 move from when we last spoke. Okay. It was at 24,208. We ended up at a low of 22,780, and we closed yesterday at 22,916. So there was a lot of opportunity just by kind of following that discussion that we had last week. Okay. And by the way, this is something that we do talk about every morning. We do trade QQQ options every morning. We trade futures. So if you are not in that Warrior program, then join up, because I'm telling you, there's a ton of value here, right? There's a ton of value here. And I said that Micron would be the last one. The last one that I really want to close with is IMSR. So this is that nuclear company, and what they are doing is they have been creating molten salt reactors, which basically superheat and super condense salt to the point that the atoms break, you get nuclear fission, and energy is released. So this is a lot safer and a lot more cost efficient than your traditional nuclear generators. When we talked about this last week, what I was saying is that I wanted to wait for earnings. Okay. I wanted to wait for earnings. Like, I took a very small position, but I wanted to wait for earnings for, anything a little bit more substantial. Yesterday we got our earnings. It was during a day where the entire market was red. It sold off and ended up gaining back maybe about a third of what it sold off. And today, it's almost like it never even happened, because we had a green day, and this is moving largely in line with big tech. Now, what I think is really interesting is that, a lot of people, or rather, not a lot, but the people that are paying attention to this, right? The people that are paying attention to this, were saying like, oh wow, they reported much larger, losses than expected. Well, it was kind of expected, right? It was kind of expected, just because of the stage of this company's existence that they're in, right? It's very early. They don't have any real revenue. Okay. They don't have any real revenue. What they are doing is something that is truly transformational. And, for those of you that know me, like, dude, I shit talk nuclear all the time. I think that it is a 1950s technology, and it's 2026, right? And I think that realistically, my biggest issue with it is that a lot of these companies are scams. Now, this is an American company, and they aren't like Oklo, where their headquarters is in a fucking strip mall between a dentist and like a carpentry supply store. Okay. These guys actually have employees. They're actually building something. And I think that this is probably a decent speculative play. And again, this is something that, go very small, go very slow, move at the speed of a fucking glacier. You do not want to rush this one. I'm not telling you to YOLO everything in here. I would never tell you to do that. But I think that this one does have some potential if you're willing to hold on for a few months. So, I picked up a very small amount. I think it was actually on Wednesday after we spoke. So like right here. And then I picked up a tiny bit more yesterday because they had their earnings early in the morning. I picked up a little bit more. I'm basically break even right now on it. Um, but I'm just going to try to see if I can accumulate some dips, and if it runs off without me getting a big size, then it is what it is. But we want to make sure that we are being cautious first and foremost. um, yeah, so that's kind of where we are with everything. um, I don't have too much else to say. I think that we covered most of the topics that we wanted to talk about today, especially Riley. And, in regards to Riley, like I am still very bullish. And I do think that today's earnings release and the associated call, it builds a lot of confidence. So everybody hang in there. Again, if you need anything throughout the week, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you here next Tuesday for that. And again, if you want to trade NASDAQ with us in the morning, and gold and silver and oil, right? All of the things that can be traded with futures and options. Um, Sign up for Warrior. Come on by, and we'd love to have you, right? We'd love to have you, and you get access to basically all of my DD and my thoughts on swing plays and intraday scalps. So with all of that being said, I think that we'll just kind of bring this one to a close, this session. I really do appreciate you guys coming out and spending a little bit of time with myself and with Blanche. And I will catch all of you later. Yes, I'm trading tomorrow. I'm trading tomorrow. Of course I am. Right. I'll see all of you bright and early, an hour before New York session opens. So um, hope everyone has a wonderful night. And again, if you need anything, let me know. Trade Mama, just connect with me, and let's get you scheduled for your little presentation next week. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Thank you, everybody. All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, and I will see you tomorrow bright and early. Catch you later.